Women Tools Technology, Building Opportunities and Economic Power is an innovative online challenge that identified transformative solutions for promoting women's economic advancement through technology, with a focus on women from developing countries. Sponsored by Ashoka's Changemakers and ExxonMobil in partnership with the International Center for Research on Women, the challenge sourced 268 entries from 67 countries. Efforts are part of ExxonMobil's Women's Economic Opportunity Initiative, which has invested more than $32 million since its launch in 2005. We are happy to bring Marissa Mayer, Vice President, Search and Products and User Experience at Google, to the table. She joined Google in 1999 as Google's first female engineer and led the user interface and web server teams at that time. Her efforts have included designing and developing Google's search interface, internationalizing the site to more than 100 languages, defining Google News, Gmail, and Orkut, and launching more than 100 features and products on Google.com. In addition to her full-time work at Google, Marissa has taught introductory computer programming classes at Stanford to more than 3,000 students. She was recognized by the school with their Centennial Teaching Award and the Forsyth Award for her outstanding contribution to undergraduate education. She's been featured in various publications including Newsweek, Red Herring, Business 2.0, Business Week, and Fast Company. We welcome her to the table today, and we'll start with our first few questions. A couple of the questions from our community, and when I say the community, I do mean the Twitter community, as well as the entrants in the Women Tools Technology competition campaign. One of those questions is about when you're trying to help a company innovate better, using your vast experience as really one of the pioneers at Google, is a supportive culture more important than supporting processes?
I think the culture is fundamental. And I think that when you look at companies, their processes are usually a reflection of their culture. So the two go hand in hand, but you have to start with having the right culture towards innovation, towards the fact that you're trying to foster it, and you're trying to organize around it and for it. And if you have that in place, then the processes will not necessarily come together to support that. It's very hard to take processes that really support innovation and inject them into a culture that isn't receptive to those. So I think the culture is fundamental, and the processes are really a reflection of that underlying culture.
As a core member of really one of the most powerful communications and information tools in history, what do you see for the future of the Internet within the next 5 years, considering the growth of social media?
I think we're going to see a lot of change over time. One, I think we're going to see a difference in how people interact with search. So I think that everything from, we've released now Google Goggles, where you can take a picture of something and we'll search for it and try and tell you about it. It could be a label, it could be a landmark, it could be an animal, and we'll try and tell you what we recognize there and what we know about that. It could be what we often refer to jokingly as an omnivorous search box. Today, the Google search box eats keywords when you query it from your desktop, but wouldn't it be great if you could just drag anything, an MP3 file, a photo, an overall concept, a paragraph of text, and have us analyze it and tell you what we know about it or what references we have to it. And so I think there's a lot of really interesting things that could evolve there. I also think the web is becoming incredibly rich. And every year there seems to be a new medium that hasn't been seen before online. Right? Today we have our regular web pages, but we also have images and news and books and local, as well as blogs and products. And now lately we've been seeing a lot of real-time updates. And all of these are really critical components to search over in order to achieve comprehensiveness. And then finally, there's really an element of understanding. And the element of understanding really has to do with, one, the search engine being able to understand the web better, the context on the page, the semantic meaning of the page, but also in terms of social media, understanding a person's social context. What do they prefer? Who are they friends with? What does their social circle say on this topic? And we have a company we acquired recently, Aardvark, that is really in the core of this space, where they really try and understand what people are experts on and allow them to query their social circle to get an expert answer back through narrowcasting. I think it's really very exciting.
In a time of ever-evolving search, what else do you see as far as the future for women in developing nations, even when it comes to better access to these kinds of technologies and helping to foster and cultivate a competency of that literacy?
Well, I think that what it will do in terms of education and in terms of communication is really fundamental. And I think that the two core building blocks that we have there that I think will be really relevant in this space are search, as well as translation. We have Google Translate. It is actually the best translation software in the world. We enter it into different competitions each year, and along many different measurements. It is actually the most accurate and most robust machine translation that's available. And it really unlocks the power of content, because it basically means that anything has ever been written about this anywhere, you can now translate it. Or if you want to express yourself across language barriers, you can. And so if you think about what that means, not only being able to express yourself, but also to be able to communicate. Right? Could you do a multilingual chat where two different people speak their native language and you have machine translation in the middle? We're still somewhat away from that in terms of the overall capability of the technology to do that seamlessly, but it's clear that we are approaching that, and I think it will be really interesting to see what that does for people in developing countries, and particularly for women, because I think the elements of education and communication are really important for them.
So ExxonMobil's Women's Economic Opportunity Initiative is a global effort launched in 2005 that helps women fulfill their economic potential and serve as drivers of both economic and social change in their communities. And this particular initiative focuses on three key program areas to improve women's economic opportunities globally. The first is to help develop female business leaders and entrepreneurs. The second helps create an enabling environment for women's and economic participation. And third is to help identify and deploy technologies to accelerate women's economic advancement. So in light of all of this, what do you envision as the playing field currently, both in the U.S. and globally? And further, how does being one of Google's first female engineers and one of its true key architects fuel your own passion for creating more opportunities for women like yourself who may not yet be empowered for reasons from anything, the political to educational to even geographical?
I think that it's really hard to speak very broadly about this because the climate is different in different industries. In particular, in the area of computer science and particularly the internet, as well as being here at Google, I think that our playing field is very level. There's a lot of wonderful people who've helped grow and build Google, and a lot of them have been women. I'm surrounded here by really wonderful women technologists who really understand the internet space and have helped build Google into a tool that's really useful to a lot of people. And so I'm very proud of Google for that. I think that we're overall very empowering to women. But I think it's also important to point out that I think that because of Google's age and the way we've scaled so quickly, it has been through somewhat of a deliberate effort, but it doesn't feel very deliberate. I often say that I don't feel like a woman at Google. I feel like a geek at Google. And that is, something that's really wonderful. You can imagine Google's a great place to be a geek. And, from that lens, I think that, that's really the true test of a level playing field, an equal playing field, is, are women empowered and to such an extent that gender really isn't the key issue.
And